Well, this industry is going to grow to $1 trillion industry in the next couple of years, and I believe this is probably an underestimate.
What would you say advances in AI and machine learning have done for the semiconductor industry as a whole?
Machine learning is massively disrupting legacy workflows and workloads that were handled very differently before neural networks came along.
I think everyone is taking the approach that Silicon Box has been taking, which is find solutions to continue collaboration and drive innovation.
There's a lot of great minds, lots of great companies focused on this exact challenge in all areas of AI processing and transport of data.
Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm Divya Gopalan. Semiconductors keep shaping the world around us and powering the tools we use every day. And no place is currently more important for chip development and manufacturing than Taiwan. And that is why today we continue our coverage of one of the industry's top events, SEMICON Taiwan 2024. Now, this year it drew over 1,100 exhibitors and countless visitors looking for everything from cutting-edge research to groundbreaking commercial applications. We were there on the floor speaking with companies driving the innovations. And among them was Niraj Mathur, the co-founder of Blumind, a Canadian deep tech startup leading the way in sustainable analog AI neural network architecture. He shared his perspective on the current state of the chip industry, its future trends, and taking a product from blueprint to market.
We are a fabless semiconductor company on a mission to build the world's most energy efficient AI chips. We've spent about 3 years in funded R&D. We've done a number of test chips to prove out our foundational technology, and this year we're shifting gears from R&D to commercialization. So it's an exciting time at Blumind, and we are gearing up for our first product launch later this year.
What would you say is the environment for shifting gears from R&D to commercial, to having a commercial product, and why did you think that that was the direction you wanted to take?
Well, it takes about 3 to 5 years to bring a foundational semiconductor technology from the idea phase to all the way to high volume production. So that's just the time it takes. We have spent our 3 years, and it's about normal for the industry. It's about average. So we're on that journey right now. I would say it's a very interesting time from a market perspective because AI is gaining more and more traction in more and more use cases that in the market segments that we're targeting. So it's a very exciting time. It just so worked out that we're ready with our product and the market is ready to accept it and run with it. So.
And to give us a broader perspective, what would you say advances in AI and machine learning have done for the semiconductor industry as a whole?
It's been huge, Divya. I mean, it cannot be really overstated. If you notice in the show here today, the tagline is "Breaking Limits, Powering the AI Era," and that is actually really accurate and appropriate for the time we're in right now. Machine learning is massively disrupting legacy workflows and workloads that were handled very differently before neural networks came along, and now more and more people are educated on how to use these neural networks more effectively for a very diverse set of workloads, all the way from the data center down to the tiniest neural networks on battery-operated sensors. So it's truly an exciting time, and the momentum is growing. I myself have observed this very directly. About a year ago, we had almost nobody banging on our door asking for specifically our type of solutions with analog compute and extreme efficiency and sustainability. Today, that's not the case. We're getting lots of queries from folks that are now much more familiar with this space and want solutions to meet their needs. So it's great to see.
All right, let me get you to maybe dig a little bit deeper into that. The semiconductor industry is divided broadly into analog and digital. Can you give us a very brief background on both and why you've chosen to go the analog route?
The approach that emerged over the decades, semiconductors started off being analog, but the approach that emerged because of advanced digital signal processing was to convert analog information into the digital domain and apply DSP, digital-based processors, were then able to do these workloads effectively. So that served us really well when Moore's Law was alive and well, and we were getting massive step function advances in the semiconductor technology, and we rode that wave for around 4 decades. That no longer holds true. So now we're reaching molecular limits of the features in these semiconductor processes, and it's getting prohibitively expensive to build chips and products in these new technologies. We're now doing neural networks that are trained with tons of data and then can do inferencing operations on new data that they haven't seen before. That's a very different workload than somebody writing a software program, a human programming a software program that needs to run then on a chip. So we've gone back and thought about how can we, given the nature of this new type of workload, optimize the semiconductor design and extract the most efficiency out of it.
So can you give us an example of how that is used to support the advances we're seeing in AI and machine learning?
For example, we've got customers in the automotive space that are looking at building tires, smart tires, putting smarts into tires with neural networks to detect road conditions and tire wear and tear and so forth. The challenge is, if you've got that neural network and the data science to support the information you're generating, how do you do that with the least amount of energy? Because this thing has to operate inside a tire for the lifetime of the tire. So how do you do that? So that's where we come in and say, okay, we can improve energy 100 times, 500 times better than a digital processor, and that makes the difference between that use case being realized or not. Similarly, in the health field with implants, implantable devices, there's a lot of folks moving these devices from battery operated to energy harvested, which greatly improves the use of these devices by a patient. So in that use case, again, energy efficiency is key. If I can minimize the energy consumed by the AI processing to detect things like a cardiac event from occurring, and I do that with an extremely low energy profile, that now I can make that sensor actually energy harvested, that system energy harvested, again, greatly improving the experience for the patient. So those are some tangible examples. This is where we're starting, is with the small neural networks that are battery constrained and thermally constrained, but we intend to massively scale up our solutions in the future to do much larger models as well.
Okay, so I want to change tack a little bit and talk about the issue of human resources. You have talked about the lost decade until 2014. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what's the impact we see from that current day?
Yeah, sure. We've actually, going a little bit further back, after the dot-com bust in the 2000s, there was an exodus of talent from the semiconductor industry. Lots of smart engineers that went to school to study electronics were choosing a different career path in the finance industry or banking industry and so forth. And that was disheartening for me. A lot of colleagues and friends that work with me in the industry chose to move on because, quite frankly, we were in the doldrums of innovation at the time. We were, like I said, regurgitating the same architectures, the same thing over and over, year after year, and there was no real groundbreaking products coming out from our industry, unfortunately. And that caused even kids that would have pursued an education in the electronics field to choose other disciplines. So it created this gap, this huge gap of talent in the industry, and we're suffering from that even today. And I'm hoping, given the big push, the big boost that AI has given our industry, more kids see the electronics industry as a great industry to work in for their entire careers. So I hope that changes.
Might bring forward another, I guess, issue for you in terms of competition. Like how do startups like yours compete in attracting the talent you need when you're competing against bigger, more established industries?
It's the same formula that startups have always used. We can offer much more interesting work and really offer to propel an engineer's understanding, knowledge, and skill set in a way that a larger company just simply cannot. To give you an example, we're hiring machine learning engineers, software engineers as well. We do a ton of software development as well. And we're looking really for engineers that can do machine learning, they understand neural networks, but they can also write C code for embedded microcontrollers, and they can also do an iPhone app, right? So they are exposed to all these domains, and we encourage people to really take on projects in many different areas. These types of opportunities you don't get in larger companies. So this is tremendously exciting for engineers, I feel.
And speaking of exciting, the advances we're seeing in AI, machine learning, deep learning, it's just meteoric, the rise in changes and advances. How, in that case, does it affect the startup industry, particularly for companies like yours, in terms of, let's say, investments or exposure?
Yeah, so firstly, startups are uniquely positioned to deal with rapid change. I mean, that's what a startup does. So the faster an industry is moving, the bigger the space for startups. So in that sense, this is a really exciting time, and in fact, the perfect time to be a startup when this industry is going through some rapid change. On the investment side, certainly we've seen investors warm up to making bolder bets on what they call deep tech or hard tech, right? This deep tech area, which is where we operate, while it requires more capital, more time to revenue, it is very sticky. And once you overcome those hurdles, you really build something extraordinary for the long term. So more and more investors are realizing this, recognizing it, and it's resulting in investors that typically wouldn't invest in areas like ours actually coming in and participating. So it's been really nice to see that, and I think that trend is going to accelerate in the next few years.
Speaking of trends, this is your fourth trip to Taipei in 2 years, is that right?
In just over a year.
In just over a year, wow.
It's been quite phenomenal. Taiwan is one of, I would say, the 5 main semiconductor regions in the world, but with the highest concentration. It's phenomenal. I mean, just walking the floor here, you see companies doing everything from materials to manufacturing to design. It's just a phenomenal breadth of capability and talent here in Taiwan. So we ourselves are generating a ton of interest here. We're developing partnerships that are going to really help our product and our business going forward. So I hope to come here many more times in the future, yes.
You may have already answered this, but what's the buzz here? What do you think what's getting people excited?
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, I'll mention 2 things. One is, I think the pushing out of AI to the edge, out of the data center, making devices more intelligent. That is one of the themes that is playing out over and over today. And I think there are very good reasons behind that, right? There's the energy efficiency, sustainability, and latency and performance as well for a great user experience requires that there be more intelligent right at the user, where the user resides. So that's one trend. And then the other, I would say, more on the data center side, you know, the merging of optical with the compute, moving optical communication closer to the compute with some really innovative technologies is making a big impact on AI compute for very large models in the data center. So those are the 2 trends that I'm very excited about.
So, you know, you mentioned it quite a few times in our conversation today, and about energy and efficiency and sustainability. But realistically speaking, we are not seeing that much of a breakthrough given the explosion we've seen in production, particularly on the production and manufacturing side. So can you tell us what you're hoping to see, or perhaps if there's anything you're seeing down the line when it comes to being able to manage that energy consumption and carbon, that carbon footprint that the industry is making?
Yeah, no, great question. I think there's a lot of great minds, lots of great companies focused on this exact challenge in all areas of AI processing and transport of data. There's great work being done on data center models, reducing compressing models, reducing the size, the footprint that models take in chips, and coming out with new mathematical models for neural networks. So there's a lot of work happening on the algorithm side to reduce the impact of compute. And then we're doing our bit too, coming out with new analog compute, neuromorphic type of approaches that are brain inspired to again, reimagine how neural networks are processed on semiconductors to again massively reduce the energy footprint. So a lot of great work happening. It takes time, however, right? As we talked earlier, it takes 3 to 5 years for a novel idea in the semiconductor world to see the light of day. So there's a little bit of a lag, but I'm very hopeful. I think with the talent and intelligence this industry has, we're going to see some great solutions emerge.
That was Niraj Mathur, the co-founder of Blumind. Now, semiconductors are already a massive industry valued at hundreds of billions of dollars. And as the president and CEO of imec, Dr. Luc van den Hove, says, he expects it to grow at a stellar pace despite some geopolitical headwinds.
Well, this industry is going to grow to $1 trillion industry in the next couple of years, and I believe this is probably an underestimate. We've seen an acceleration over the last couple of years at a pace which we've never seen before. This industry has grown so much on being interconnected, on building on collaboration, because if you want to be relevant in this industry, you have to have the critical mass. I mean, we're here in Taiwan, TSMC is the perfect example. You have to have critical mass in order to be relevant. So I don't believe in a model where every region is going to try to do everything. If that's the evolution, it would lead to a setback, and actually it would lead to mediocrity. So I think it's very important to connect those strengths, because otherwise the progress in the industry may slow down, actually. So CHIPS Acts, I think, can be a fantastic opportunity to create the critical mass to move forward, but it has to be done right. We should not fall in the trap of protectionism.
That was Dr. Luc van den Hove, the president and CEO of imec. Now, at this year's SEMICON Taiwan, we also had the opportunity to speak with Mike Han. He's the head of business at SiliconBox. It's an advanced chiplet-based solutions provider. He told us how his company managed to thrive in this extremely competitive industry.
A lot of what we do is manufacturing semiconductor designs, the final step, assembly and test services. So it's really important to have executed successfully for these customers in the past. So fortunately, our founder's long track record has really pushed us to be at the forefront, even though we're a newer company. A lot of our customers and a lot of the industry players consider us veterans. So exciting. New company, but long legacy. Yeah.
So especially at Silicon, whenever you say growth, it's pretty much synonymous with artificial intelligence, machine learning.
These days. Yeah.
And particularly at this event.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how that's playing into your growth too, and demand for you?
Definitely. So a lot of what we've been doing at SiliconBox is working on heterogeneous integration, which is coming to the forefront for artificial intelligence and all these exciting new applications that are coming to the forefront of life, really. So yeah, it's something that our team has been working on for a really long time. Now it's really necessary to enable some of these more advanced applications like AI that everyone cares about. So it's been really gratifying because it's like a lifetime of work that our founders have put in related to chiplet architecture, more successful manufacturing, sustainable manufacturing of these chips, and it's all coming together.
Okay, so you mentioned chiplet architecture. Can you explain to us what SiliconBox does and what are chiplets?
So yes, like I mentioned, SiliconBox is at the final step of manufacturing of semiconductors. So we're in the packaging and testing of chips. So we get integrated circuits from the foundry like TSMC, and then we end up doing the final packaging. But what we do that's a little bit different is that we do advanced packaging. So not only do we do the final packaging of ICs, we also bring different ICs together into a package to create a system in package as opposed to a system on chip. So traditionally all of these systems were built on a single chip which were then packaged. But what we do is that we are able to bring different integrated circuits into a package, and that becomes the chip. So it's an exciting development. It kind of changes the game when it comes to manufacturing of semiconductors. And for these larger systems like AI or advanced automotive, it's become necessary.
So bringing it back to Silicon Box, last year you opened a manufacturing and R&D center in Singapore to the tune of $2 billion.
Right.
And this year you've announced investment of almost $4 billion in a packaging facility in Italy. Now, firstly, how did you end up picking those two places?
So for Singapore, there was an established network. So our CEO, Dr. BJ Han, was previously the chairman and CEO of Stats ChipPack based in Singapore. So we had established a pretty broad ecosystem based upon that in Singapore, which made us confident in building in Singapore to start. When it comes to expanding our manufacturing footprint, we actually explored a ton of different markets. Right now, it's kind of become an interesting space, not only because of AI, but some of the geopolitical tensions around semiconductor manufacturing. So we had a lot of opportunity to explore, the different opportunities out there, like governments were giving us grants, programs that would help us, establish ourselves faster within their countries. And then we ended up choosing Italy because we thought that what we were doing, the customers or the market that we thought would benefit the most at this time was Europe. At the same time, I think the European governments, and especially the Italian government, was taking a pretty introspective approach to what they would need to do to support development of this type of ecosystem. And it really resonated with what we were trying to do and how we thought about things. So we chose Italy.
So one of the conversations, among the conversations we've been having here in particular, is one of the biggest problems that the industry is going to face is talent and finding the talent and competition for that talent, for the people to work in those facilities and maybe grow those facilities. What are you finding when it comes to finding that talent, especially in places that are not the traditional hubs of semiconductors?
Well, we're finding that it's hard to find that talent anywhere because these days, the best talent is in demand globally. And, there's a lot more explosive growth happening in the semiconductor industry than there was in the past. So, you can't just turn up these engineers out of nowhere. They have to have been educated and have wanted to work in semiconductors. So, yes, it's kind of a challenge to hire for what we do, especially because what we're doing is relatively new, even within the industry. But in Singapore, we have a place where we have some experience with the talent there and developing talent natively. And really one of the justifications for moving to Italy, for example, was that even if the talent is not clustered there right now, we did find that there was a lot of Italian engineers globally that we could leverage and we thought might want to return back home at some point. So we have to be pretty creative, but the talent is out there, and it really is about us presenting the best, company or strategy that they can engage with. Yeah.
Very interesting. So on that note, Taiwan is still considered the semiconductor manufacturing hub.
That it is. Yeah.
But we've seen, and you mentioned this yourself, with your move to Italy, we've seen many governments want to set up their own centers of manufacturing. Now, how do you think that's going to impact the sharing, and that's been one of the tenets of the semiconductor industry, the sharing of knowledge, the sharing of technology also?
Yeah, I hope it continues. I hope the developments that we are seeing and we're a part of at Silicon Box foster continuous collaboration across borders. It doesn't seem like that's necessarily the objective right now, but at least for what we do, it's necessary to have continued collaboration and the best of knowledge across the world to enable these applications and scale these industries.
Right, and you're seeing all these kind of acts like the US CHIPS Act, the EU CHIP Act, which some would say it's decentralizing it and kind of making manufacturing in particular more locally based.
Yeah.
Whereas you seem to be going the opposite direction. How's that working out?
Yeah, we're trying to accommodate this movement, but at the same time, we want to be champions of continued collaboration. I think our company knows no borders, like we've established in Singapore, but our CEO and I am based, are usually from the US and Korea too. So we represent globalization already, even in the foundation of our company. Why we moved to Europe before we considered some of the other opportunities out there was relatively a more level playing field. I think because Europe didn't really have a native ecosystem for exactly what we did. It was actually more of a level playing field. So even as we expand and we accommodate some of these things that really our customer and consumers are demanding, we'd like to continue to champion innovation, collaboration. You know, our European company is going to be Silicon Box in Europe, not Silicon Box Singapore based in Europe. You know.
Nice to see that collaboration and sharing of technology continue like we're seeing at events like this.
Yeah.
You've been around, I'm sure you've spoken to people. What's the buzz this year?
It seems like a lot of people are focused on panel level fan out, heterogeneous integration, AI, a lot of the manufacturing that's going to enable AI really. Which is exactly kind of what I was talking to. So yeah, and surprisingly a lot about collaboration too. I think even though everyone has to accept the geopolitical reality, I think everyone is taking the approach that Silicon Box has been taken, which is, you know, find solutions to continue collaboration and drive innovation.
And that was Mike Hahn, the head of business at Silicon Box. Well, that was the latest from SEMICON Taiwan 2024 here in the nation's capital, Taipei. We look forward to bringing you more insights into this dynamic industry in future episodes. But for now, it's been good to have your company. If you've enjoyed today's episode or have anything you'd like to add to the dialogue, do join the conversation on our social media. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay connected.